Can you see me? I think all of you should be there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So it is 6:32 and we are calling the July 11 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. Commissioner Kathy Brandt Rucker, the chair, is not here this evening. Commissioner Wendy Phillips, vice chair, present. Commissioner Jim Richards.
Here.
Commissioner Jim Phillips.
Here.
Commissioner Scott Sorensen.
Here.
Commissioner Colleen Fried.
Here.
Commissioner John Evans.
Here.
Staff Phil Carlson.
Here.
Staff Joe Palin.
Here.
Staff Jason Baker.
Here.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So item 3 on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
So it has been moved by Jim Phillips and seconded by Jim Richards. And is there any discussion regarding the agenda tonight? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of approving the agenda as is, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Tonight's agenda is approved. So we're moving on to item 4, which is the approval of minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes, June 13th.
Okay, let me make a statement first that these minutes were previously distributed and they are for June 13th. So we have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Jim Phillips and seconded by John Evans. Is there any discussion or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, we will move to the vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the June 13th meeting, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The minutes of
I
June.
abstained.
You
since I wasn't
abstained?
here.
Thank you. So we have one abstention and the minutes from June 13th are approved. I think you're a little person. I like that. That sound makes me happy. All right. So our first public hearing was scheduled for 6:35 p.m. But that application was withdrawn by the resident. And so that public hearing is canceled. We have 5 minutes until we are able to start the public hearing for the Hamilton Group project. If there's anybody in the room that would like to come forward and grab a form off of the podium, you are welcome to come up, fill this out. And if you would bring that to me, please, then I will go ahead and bring these people up in the order that these are given to me. Thanks, Paul. And while we're waiting, I am going to exercise a chair privilege here, and that is bring forward out of old business an update on the WSB project. Jim Phillips, would you please let everybody know what we discussed at the July 3rd meeting with WSB?
Yeah, we had a meeting on, like I said, July 3rd as a steering committee. And this was actually the second major meeting for the steering committee. We turned around and basically we were looking for the participation from the residents of Orinoco So we're gonna have a couple pop-ups that are gonna be there, and they're gonna be at the National Night Out, or whatever the new name is for National Night Out. And they're also gonna be at Gold Rush with a tent and be able to go over and take a look and do a questionnaire that there is. Look for some feedback. We're also gonna be putting a poster that's gonna be similar to what the fire trucks are that are out in the hallway, and have that for WSB. So at least everybody that comes in is gonna be aware of what's going on. Part of the survey is gonna be visual preferences, and so there's different pictures that we're looking at, to get an idea of how people are looking at lot sizes and setbacks and everything. That way, that kind of makes sense. So, that was the main thing that there was. And our next meeting is gonna be coming up, gosh, I'm trying to think when it was.
I don't remember either.
But anyway, that's basically what we went over with WSB. So it's very good, very good.
And I know that the last meeting, we passed a clipboard around for all of the Orinoco residents who want to be present and take part in meetings that we're having about the new code that's being developed. If you would like the chair, Kathy Brandt Rucker, to contact you and let you know when those meetings are taking place, I've got a couple of clipboards here. If you'd like to put your names on these, that would be great. Would you go ahead and circulate those for me, please?
An extra pen?
You know what? Let me grab, see if I got one in my purse.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Jason. So we've got less than a minute until we can begin our public hearing. And so we're just gonna cruise for a moment. If anybody wants to come up and get a form so that you can speak during public comments, during the public hearing, they are on top of the podium. If you have them and you've already filled them out and you want to bring them up to me right now, I am receiving them so that we can get you in the queue for making a public comment. And it is now 6:40 p.m. This public hearing is actually a continuation from June 13th. And on June 13th, we opened up that public hearing. I believe it was at 7:08 p.m. And so we are continuing from that moment in time. And I know that I was asked by Phil Carlson of Stantec if they could do a presentation to open up this public hearing. And so if you would like to come to the podium at this time and begin your presentation, that would be great.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. And for the benefit of those here, I'm Phil Carlson. I'm the city planner. I'm with the consulting firm Stantec. The context of this is a project that has been talked about for some months on the 40-some acres in the southeast part of the city to be called Cedar Crest Point. And it's been the subject of informal meetings in front of this commission and in front of the city council, as well as neighborhood meetings, the latest one a couple of weeks ago here in this room. The basic components of the project have been similar from the beginning. Some commercial on the west side, transitioning to some higher density in the middle of the project, transitioning to low density or single family residential on the north and east sides. And that continues. This was submitted in May by the developer, Hamilton Group, and their consultants. And when staff, Joe Palin, the city engineer, and I, and city staff reviewed it, we found there were some important details missing, that it was incomplete and would really not have been ripe for consideration of the commission. But that was between the time they submitted, notices went out, the public hearing had been published. And so many of these people, as you know, showed up and there really wasn't a project to present. That's not now the case. There has been those plans submitted, and hopefully everyone has taken advantage of viewing those plans and our reports online that show the extent of the project. There are 4 basic decisions that the city needs to make in regard to this project, and they're detailed in our staff report under today's date. The first is an amendment to the future land use plan. And as you know, the future land use plan is that generalized plan, and it's the colored map off on the right side on the wall here. And for this property, it shows a slice of commercial next to 2nd Avenue, then a slice of multifamily residential, and then the bulk of it being yellow, the single family low density residential. That basic pattern is what is proposed. What's different is that middle slice, the multifamily residential in the form of townhouses, they're actually fourplexes and twin homes, is expanded. But the commercial stays in almost exactly the same amount as has been shown on the land use plan for several years here. And the transition or the adjacency to single family existing to the north and to the east of this project remains. They will be single family lots, and in most cases very similar in size to the single family lots that are already there and developed. What's changed, as I said, is that middle with the duplexes and fourplexes expands. To the south, that expanded area abuts areas that are already commercial and being developed as commercial with the Two Sisters and other development down there. So that future land use plan over which the city has considerable discretion, you get to set your future land use plan. That has been the subject of some considerable discussion over a good period of time, but it was set a while ago. But it can be changed, and it's understood that the lines that are drawn on that, and you'll notice them, they're kind of nice square boxes. But real development doesn't happen often in nice square boxes. It pushes and pulls, and so it's perfectly appropriate to be expected that when a real development comes in, it might massage those lines, and that's exactly what's happened with this development. So that's the first decision, is that future land use plan amendment. Then the second is rezoning. And the land use plan is the generalized vision for the city. The zoning is the specific tool. It's the ordinance, it's the law that has the detailed standards. And those two should go hand in hand. The land use plan and the zoning, they should be consistent. And that's what's being requested here, is that if that future land use plan is changed, then we rezone it in accordance, so that the commercial area on the land use plan gets zoned commercial zoning, the middle portion, that multifamily designation gets rezoned to R2, and the R1, the low density, stays the way it is. The third decision has to do with variances, or as we often say flippantly, permission to break the rules. It involves two things. One is the lot sizes. And as you know, for many years, the minimum lot size for residential development in Orinoco has been 20,000 square feet. And that's based on an absolute minimum needed for septic systems, which is what Orinoco has been on for all of its history. Well, now with the municipal sewer plant under operation and connecting to homes, that lot size can be and should be reduced, and is in the process of in your discussions to be reduced. And that's been expected for many, many years. And the comprehensive plan points to that, and discussions over the years at this commission have anticipated that. But those changes to the zoning ordinance and lot size are not in effect yet. So here we have a development that should it get built, can connect to the sewer, but the standards are lagging behind. And so we're saying grant variances to that so that now those lot sizes are permitted, anticipating that the lot size would be somewhere very close to what they are requesting. A second variance within that decision has to do with the provision of private streets. Currently, the city's code says that private streets are not to be allowed in the city. That it's all public streets, so that you dedicate a piece of public right-of-way, and inside that is where the streets and utilities get built. It's certainly common in many places to have private streets for townhouses or duplexes or other kinds of development. But there are concerns, and the city engineer and I have raised those concerns, and we're ambivalent about it, allowing that in this instance. The concern is that you develop a private street and it isn't built to the standards of city streets, and the right-of-way or the area that it's in isn't wide enough to accommodate what typically happens in private streets. And not only that, then they're under a private homeowners association, and 20, 30 years down the road, people may not realize that that street they've been driving on is their responsibility as residents instead of the city's. And then they ask the city, why don't you fix my street? Why aren't you plowing my street? All of that kind of thing. Now, in this, so in that kind of situation, that's why we discourage, and the city has even prohibited private streets. The developer here, and in discussions recently, since this has been brought up, has said that they would institute an escrow within the homeowners association to collect and to communicate to people that, in fact, there would be money set aside to maintain those streets to a standard that would be acceptable to the city. So there is, movement and suggestion in that direction. But just understand that that is one of the variances you're being asked to consider. It's further complicated in that the requirement for that variance was also discovered within the review that happened since the notice went out for the public hearing. And the city attorney has advised us that because that variance notice did not specifically mention that it was for this private street issue, that in fact, that should be noticed, and a new public hearing and decision be made at next month's meeting, so that that can, in a process way, be handled in a perfectly legal fashion. So if you take that up tonight and make a recommendation, understand that that variance request for the private streets is likely going to go to another meeting in front of you and decision by the city council. So that's just one of the complications, but be aware of that. The fourth decision that you're being asked to make is on the preliminary plat, and that is the official division of the property into the lots and blocks and street right-of-ways that you see on the plans. And so those four decisions, and basically in that order, and it should be four separate decisions, make a recommendation on the land use plan, make a recommendation then on the rezoning to follow that land use plan, make a recommendation on the variances, and finally make a recommendation on the plat, which would incorporate all of those other things. The plat assumes that the land use is in place, that the zoning is in place to accommodate that plat, and that the variances have been given for the lot size and the private streets in order to accomplish that plat. So that's why the plat would come last. There are a number of details and analysis that we put into our report, and the city engineer has reviewed these as well to make sure that the utilities, the grading, the recording of easements, et cetera, is in line. And many of those have been addressed, or at least they have been discussed but they may not need to be closely involved in your decision. You know, the decisions that you're being asked to make are not really about all of the engineering details, but you should be comfortable that those can in fact be handled. An important thing to understand about this project and what's in front of you is actually on page 7 of our report, where we have a colored map of the overall area and what is being requested for the various land uses and zoning, and what's in the plat. That is, what are the lots that are actually being described and requested now, and what's in future phases. And so it's about 60% of the property that's owned by this applicant, LSADG, that's in the current plat, and it's the western 60%. So it's the commercial, all of that fourplex and duplexes, and something less than half of the ultimate single family lots. Then that eastern, I'll call it 40%, would be left unplatted, untouched for now, and in a year or 3 years or 5 years, when the developers want to come back, they would plat that. They do have a general development plan. They do have a plan that they've shared as to what that would look like. And as I said, it requests the smaller lot sizes in keeping with the Seward development that's available, but keeps larger lots up against the existing single family, so that the actual size of lots and the pattern of development surrounding it would actually be very similar to what is there today. So we go through and note the range of lot sizes that's being requested, the specific properties that are requested for the rezoning, as well as discussion of the private streets, and the plat, roadways, and a number of other details that we would be happy to discuss, you, myself, or Joe Palin. But the bottom line is that we do have the suggested findings of fact that you might include on each of these decisions: the future land use plan, the rezoning, the variance to the lot sizes, the variance to private streets, and then to the preliminary plan. So with that, I'll finish my long, short story of the development, but I'd be happy to answer questions if you have it before you open the public hearing. And as I said, Joe Palin, city engineer, is here as well.
Thank you.
I did have a question here. On each of your findings of fact, and I think it's generally finding of fact number 5, there's a statement made that the proposed amendment is in the public interest. And I'd just like you to give me some reasons why that is the conclusion.
And this is based on what we have understood and been involved with for many years with the city's comprehensive plan and the development that's been anticipated here. So that the city has planned to grow according to that land use plan, has planned for many years for a municipal sewer plant, and planned for the development that would take advantage of that. And so there's also, I think, anecdotally, a need for housing and for services that would support those existing and future residents. And so I think it can be concluded that a development like this and others which will come in the future are in the public interest if they follow generally the land use pattern that has been established for the city. So it's my opinion, and again, based on what you or the city at large has said, this is how we want to grow and this is what we want it to look like.
Any other questions? No, I have a question for you, Phil. On in your findings of fact, under future land use plan amendment, number 1 says the city of Orinoco adopted a comprehensive plan and future land use map to guide future growth and development of the city and to provide a basis for the planning of public infrastructure, which was adopted on July 17, 2006. I was looking on our website today and yesterday, and the map was updated on July 21st, 2020. And so this 2006 statement, I believe that is when the original map was created, but it was updated as recently as July 21st, 2020.
Yes, that's.
And I just felt that, for me, that was a little bit misleading because I thought we had more current renditions of it and I had to go searching for it. So I was just wanting to question why you picked the 2006 date as opposed to the 2020 date.
No, that's a good catch, and we should have included that update of the 2020 map as well. That the basis for planning and public infrastructure is described in that full plan that was adopted in 2006. The 2020 effort was really only looking at the map and amending that map.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't another full document in 2020. So I think you're right, that finding, should you choose to adopt it, would say adopted July 17th, 2006, with a future land use plan map amended in 2020.
I believe also there was one that was reviewed again in 2016. So there's one in between. It was 2006, 2016, and 2020. So there's another one that's out there too, from 2016.
Well, and obviously the latest one is the one that applies.
So, Bill, I have a question for you. I know normally the findings, the documents give us the yes, for and against argument. This one just gave us the for argument. If you were to summarize, why would we vote against this, recommend against this? Could you give us a summary of that?
I could, and we didn't put that together. That's sometimes we do that, give both for and against. And in all cases, we're kind of putting words in your mouth. This is your decision to make. But this, the future land use plan, as they've shown it, does not strictly follow what's on that map. I think it's consistent with the intent of that and is a good project. So I'm recommending approval of the land use plan amendment. But you could find that no, it does not follow the land use plan as adopted, and therefore recommend denying it. That would be a finding you could make. Obviously it's your recommendation, not final decision, but yeah, that's a recommendation you could make.
Does anybody else have questions for Bill? Thank you. Were you going to do your slide presentation at this point, or?
Yeah, would we be able to?
I believe, yes. Absolutely.
Let Bill speak here.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission. For the record, I'm Bill Twain with WSC Consulting Firms. We've been working with the applicant owner for about a year and a half now on the feasibility study of this project, and then advancing into creating a few versions of a general development plan that's been presented to the commission informally, since you don't have a formal process of approving general development plans. And we've now got to the point where we actually filed the 4 applications that Mr. Carlson just talked about. So land use amendment, preliminary plat, the zone change and variances.
Yeah, we can't hear anything.
How's this?
Better, thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out. I'm gonna start with the slide presentation. I know that Mr. Carlson did a very thorough job in his staff report. So I'm trying not to be redundant, but there are a few things that I want to review with the commission that I think might border on redundancy a little bit. So the first slide you see up here, I just want to make sure everybody understands that where the site is and what you see around the site today. So to the north, you see the River Park large lot development. To the east, you see the Cedar Woodlands. To the south, where the green is there, on the south side is Cedar Point Road. You'll see that there's commercial zoning there. And on the west side, where we're proposing the commercial, you will see commercial industrial uses between our site and the Minnesota Avenue. So we are surrounded by a variety of different land uses. We are surrounded by a lot of different types of zoning districts. And we are proposing a mixed use development with commercial on the west. The R2 is a buffer. So R2 is a typically classified buffer area between commercial and low density residential. And that's the way our transitional land use plan works, from left to right, west to east. And we get on the east side of the site, and you'll see this on our plat. We have purposely created large lots for future development on the east to be compatible with the lots that are currently there. We're going to start with the next slide. I wanted to point out that I was with McGee & Betts. I was the CEO of McGee & Betts at the time in 2006. When this general development plan was required by state ordinance and was required to be approved by the council, which it was. And you'll see on this site, again, the large lots to the east, which is now what we call Cedar Woodlands 1 through 3. And you'll notice in the center part of the site, those lots are made very small, and those are set aside for someday when we get future sanitary sewer from the city and we get water supply from the city to be able to develop it with small lots. Those lot sizes are actually much smaller than the ones we're now proposing today for this part of the area. Plus, there wasn't any commercial showing on the west side, which would match up with your current land use plan. So passing through 2006, a lot of time went by, and if there had been sanitary sewer at the time we did this plan, those lots in Cedar Woodlands would not have been large lots like this. There would have been 20,000 square foot lots. They'd have probably been 8,000 or 9,000 square feet. The city sewer and water, very adequate for serviceability with municipal services. But the fact was, it wasn't there, and we created a drain field system to handle all of the different sewage effluent from the Cedar Woodlands 1 through 3. Times have passed. Cedar Woodlands has now developed larger lots, and the residual area has been remained undeveloped until the Hamilton Group, or Artie Colas and Jimmy Shanley, came along and had an opportunity to purchase the property. And if we could have the next slide, please. We came forward in 2023, December in fact, presented this informally to the City Planning and Zoning Commission. We did it on purpose to get some comment and feedback from the commission on our types of uses that they were proposing at the time, which did include, instead of quads, it included apartment buildings in here, single family, and then the townhome development, a little bit, quads to the north. So we did hear loud and clear that the commission didn't feel it was appropriate to have any multifamily residential, and we took that out of our plan. And we put in some townhomes instead of the multifamily. We kept the residential basically the same. And in particular, again, you'll notice on the east side, the large lot, single family lots to be compatible with those that are built on today. So after the December meeting, April 24, we decided to go with present a modified layout, which is a little more detailed than we had done before. You'll notice that there is still a couple commercial lots on the west. We have the townhomes and some quads. And then we have the single family lots that shows on the rest of the site. I want to make it very clear that the large single family lots on this development plan to the north abut the large lots in River Park, the ones on the east abut the large lots in Cedar Woodlands, first through 3. So we did keep our promise that that's what we want to develop, what they want to develop. I should say, I don't develop anything, but what they want to develop. The circulation pattern in the subdivision is basically the same as we had before, with exit points at Second Avenue and again at Cedar Point Road to the south. And we do connect up with the road and from River Park, it was anticipated when we platted River Park. I actually worked on that project as well, so. We put the stub off of that road and we'll connect with that list. So really quickly, land use you heard about already. I just wanted to point out that we have in our land use plan, you'll see the existing to the top, future in the bottom. We did reduce the amount of commercial area on our land use plan, and we did add some more medium density in the middle. So that's the two changes that were made to the plan. Still have the parkland trail system there, still have low density north and east on the proposed plan. Keep in mind, and I know this might be hard to maybe grasp, but land use plans are guide plans. And anywhere you look in a comprehensive plan, a land use plan is a part of that comp plan. You could have a water plan with it, sewer plan with it, economic plan with it. That's all in the umbrella of the comp plan. Land use is one part of that. And you will notice in almost every one that I've ever done over the last 55 years, land use is a guide plan. It's meant to change as time evolves, as conditions and development evolve. This is what the city wants to see evolves. Those are allowed to be amended. So that's why we filed the land use change. It's not a do-only plan. It's a guide plan. Second request, if I have the next slide, is the zoning district. So again, we did reduce what we call the B2 zone, the commercial zone, and we increased the R2 zone. And then we do have a large part of this site, about 40% still in low density residential. So preliminary plat is our next application. And I just want to quickly show you that.
Can you be sure to speak into the microphone,
Okay,
please?
I'm sorry.
So everybody at the back can hear you as well. That's okay. Thank you.
So the preliminary plat is shown here, mirrors the general development plan, fits with the land use that we're proposing. There's been some concern I've noticed in some letters that you received about density, and I thought I would give you a little bit of an example here. With the 21 single family lots, the density is one lot or two lots to an acre. So that's a fairly low density. And the quads and townhomes together are about 6.9 units per acre. You say, wow, 6.9. Most of the communities that we work in, low density is 1 to 7 units. Medium density is 7 to 15, above 15 is high density. So in our opinion, we're still in a low density category to slightly just getting into the medium density in the middle of the site where our townhomes and quads are. I wanted to cover the density issue because that has come up before. We have public streets except for A and B. That's the two streets that would be private. I want to point out that the actual physical construction on the road section is exactly the same as your public street will be. So the number of blacktop, crushed rock, sand is exactly the same. We have curb and gutter on the private street. We don't have curb and gutter on all the rest of the subdivision, but we do there. So the difference is really the width of the street. And I propose and have used this in several different times. I've probably done about 40 town developments. And out of that, probably 60–70% of those town developments have had an HOA that in the HOA documents addresses long-term maintenance, repair, and reconstruction of the street. We escrow the money each month when the person pays their fee. Part of that goes into a separate dedicated fund for that sort of thing. And that stays with the association, even if the people leave and some new person comes, money stays there and the new person starts paying the same thing. So that was one thing we would be doing here. And the other is that I always encourage the municipality to put in their development agreement. There's no responsibility for the city of Roanoke or any city, whichever one you're in, that would have responsibility for repair and maintenance in those roads. You point that out in there, and that's your development agreement is a registered document. It's kind of like the Bible. And I suggest that that get put into the development agreement as well. By the way, I have not worked on a townhome development that has private streets that's ever had one go back to a city. So I know there's cases where they happen, but I've never had one that's happened. As long as those streets are built to the public standards and you have this escrow fund set up, it just hasn't happened. We also set it up so that the outlots would have the public easements in their entirety so that public utilities could be maintained for the sewer and water, electrical, etc. One other point of discussion has been the easement that currently is private easement around the former drain field system that serve Cedar Woodlands. And my understanding is that there's a previous agreement to which was made when the subdivision was established, that the city would retain ownership of the former Greenfield area once it was decommissioned. So I understand that's taken place now. There is no use of that septic drain field system at this time. And that the city has the authority to get an appraisal of that property and offer it for sale to somebody like our client. So the fail-safe situation here is that should that not happen before we do the final plat, we will just shorten up the 3 lots that are affected by that easement in phase 1 and just plat up to the easement line and not disturb it at all. So that's our fallback situation. The other thing we'll be doing, I want to point out that we'll be building a pedestrian trail as entirety with the first phase, even though part of it is not in the first phase.
I'm sorry, what will you be building?
The pedestrian trail will be built from the north terminus all the way through the subdivision on Second Avenue with a first plat, even though that's not a part of the plat. And we have a separate document to dedicate the easement for perpetuity of that trail system. The variance request, which Mr. Carlson has talked about, is basically street frontage sizes and lot sizes and street frontages. In some cases, we meet the street frontages for our lots at the street, but the building setback line we don't. So we're asking for the variance for that, basically because when you do city-style development, city-style lots on municipal services, those lots are smaller. You know, they're these huge 20,000 square foot lots with large frontages that would be underutilizing the site, really costly to any development, and really unnecessary because we can build homes, quality homes, higher price ranges without doing a 20,000 square foot lot. Like I said, if we would have had sewer before and not rely on septic, we wouldn't even have those 20,000 square foot lots. So I want to point that out. I know the next is the variance table. This gives you an example of mixing townhomes with single family homes. It's just one we picked out. We have familiarity with in another community. And there's twin homes here, or we call them townhomes, side by sides, and single family all mixed in the same subdivision. And in fact, the townhomes were the first ones to be sold in this subdivision. Next slide, please. So there again, it just kind of shows you the red is the trail system. I wanted to point that out and take the next slide. We're kind of hurrying on here. This just gives you an example of the variances, and the right-hand side is what we're asking for, and far left is what the code is. So 20,000 square foot lots are the only ones we can do at this time by code, and the right-hand side shows you the size that we would need to be able to do the subdivision. And then on bottom part of the chart is basically the lot frontages, and we're going to reduce the frontage of the building line to 70 feet on the single family, and then to about 46 feet on the townhomes, because you have side by side on townhomes. So a pair of townhomes would be 92 feet minimum. Wanted to show you next, just to give a comparatively example. This is Byron, Minnesota. And it shows what they use for their lot uses. So it's pretty similar to what we're proposing here. When I skip on now to just an environmental review, and this was, these are the findings that Mr. Carlson provided for the variances. We had also provided responses to criteria in our report as well. The next slide, please. So this quick. We did a little bit of a traffic analysis here. Our traffic engineer is not here this evening. He's out of town. The green area up here constitutes about 71% of the site, phase one. And that's being directed to the Second Avenue exit and entrance point. 29% would go to the south to Cedar Point Road. Occasionally, there may be a trip north into River Park if they're visiting friends or neighbors, but it was so insignificant percentage-wise, I didn't include it. The next issue I wanted to talk about was the environmental review. There was some concern about, and I noticed in some of the notes about the environmental conditions. So what we have done so far is we have done test pits on the site to make sure that down to the depth of our proposed utilities, that we would not interfere with the static water table, which is an important issue when you're dealing with a subdivision and utilities underground. We have completed a jurisdictional wetland investigation on the site. Have found no wetlands at all. We provided a letter to that effect in our submittal packet. We are building storm ponds in the northeast and the southwest corner for sedimentation control, rate control, which makes sure that the water leaving the site is a rate of pre-development, and also that the water quality is sufficient. It doesn't affect anything downstream. And then we do have the municipal sewer and water, which in our opinion is a safer treatment than septic systems, and that would handle all the effluent that we've got from the development into the current plant that you have. There's also some talk about existing infrastructure. The site is served with municipal sewer and water, and we're told we have sufficient capacity with the system to handle full development of phase one. We've talked to People's Co-op. They can service this with their electrical service by now on telephone or fiber. By now on telephone is right. It might be Bevcom, I'm not sure what the title is. Yeah. And we've also examined the existing roadway system, and there's sufficient capacity on Cedar Point Road to the south and Second Avenue to get out to Minnesota Avenue with the traffic. So we have looked at existing infrastructure. So in summary, just the applications, again, you know what they are. But I wanted to end with this. I think this is kind of important for you as a planning commission in Orinoco, as residents of Orinoco. And that is oftentimes you wonder, well, what are the public benefits here? We have a subdivision, we have somebody coming into your town that wants to build houses. What are the public benefits? Well, currently, unless I'm absolutely incorrect, there's no new developments going on in Orinoco right now. There's nobody providing lots for housing in Orinoco right now within the city limits. And anytime you look at the vitality of a community like Orinoco, one of the first things anyone coming to this area would look for would be housing. A lot of people think you're going to look for commercial activity. That's not the way it works. The way it works is you look for housing first, because you can't find housing, you don't employ anybody. We have, you are I don't know how to term this. You are somewhat of a suburban area to the main economic growth of the area, which is Rochester, which is a good thing. And we're just trying to add to the vitality of your community by building some housing stock, different types that we hope people just like you see in the audience today, they're going to live there, just like you folks here. They're going to contribute to the community. They're going to raise their families here. They're going to be a part of your community to make it better. So that's what we're trying to do here. The infrastructure charges is another thing that you need to look at. We're contributing just in phase one over $500,000 to the sewer plant and truck main system here in the city. The tax base, we did some quick calculations on the tax base just for phase one. The proportional amount of the total taxable assessment, estimated total taxable assessment for Orinoco was 32% of every dollar they collect. That amounts to over $200,000 just for phase one. And that's just assuming that we may only build one of the commercial lots instead of two. So we don't know that for sure. It could be much higher. And then as you go into phase 2 and 3, it just compounds that tax base increase as well. And again, your new residents, but I hope you welcome into the community and grow an local bit. Any town that doesn't proceed to grow goes backwards. I work as city engineer for a community that I will not name. It's not in Homestead County, but right next to it. That turned down a planning process to develop a land use plan, develop a comp plan, get some sewer plans in place to grow. They elected not to do it. They went backwards. It hurt their tax base. There's their tax revenue. They would have to raise taxes to cover the cost of the normal maintenance. And I've seen it time and time again. If you don't proceed forward and maintain a vitality that helps the community grow, you slip backwards. So I would respectfully request the commission consider a recommendation to approve the 4 applications as presented, either with the staff findings or our findings of the staff findings collectively. So with that, I was standing for any questions. My apologies for taking so long, but I thought there were a number of issues that have come up and I'm to address them.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Heather. You were talking about traffic access into and out of the area, and if I'm understanding correctly, you've got 2 major access points, correct?
Well, there's 3 connecting access points.
Yes, you've got one through River Park, but the main 2 are gonna be at, coming out of the project, right?
Yes,
The development.
That's correct, yes.
You stated that, one of those access points was about 29% of the traffic. So does that mean that the other 71% is coming out on that other road?
On Second Avenue. To the industrial / commercial area that goes over. On the South Avenue. And we, our traffic engineer modeled it after the ITE, the Institute of Traffic Engineering Manual. So I'm not familiar with that, and he's not here to explain it in more detail. That's what he had done. Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? Very good. So is the presentation for the Hamilton Group complete at this point? Yes? Okay, then I would like to invite Steve McNamara to come to the microphone for public comment. And just so that everybody is reminded, this is a 3-minute time segment to speak. And so you begin whenever you like, and I'll start the clock when you start, Steve.
Like you said, I'm Steve McNamara, and I'm actually 1115 Riverwood Drive Southwest, across 52 actually. One of the things I want to point out, and I've heard it a couple of times from.
Can you speak into the microphone?
Sorry, I thought I was.
Do you want, you can actually take that out of
Take that
the,
if you
yeah,
want.
because you're a little bit taller than that stand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First time.
Time has been restarted.
Anyway, what I want to point out, one of the things is, I keep hearing about, we closed down the commercial part of this plan and whatnot. In 2019, the previous owner, what I heard from the previous meeting I attended, that they came to P&Z and told us, I want to build an office here, a little building, maybe get some other tenants to join this little strip you want to put in. So he convinced us as a P&Z, and we rezoned it from R2 to commercial. Okay, so now what that did was push all this development that they're proposing now further inward, right? And so I think that should be considered, the fact that that was really not a legitimate, it was a spot zone is what it is, which we shouldn't have done. But individually did it, said he was going to go through this, and we pushed it through in a fall timeframe, saying I really need this now because I want to break up ground right away. Never did anything. Okay, that's what developers do a lot. And it's not against you guys, but I've heard it before up here. Okay, and so that being said, I just want that to be part of your thought process going through that R2 really should not be even anywhere close to what it really is. The future land use plan was not that in 2019. Okay. And then the other thing I wanted to point out, I've heard numerous times from people in the city and the developer that we have to have this developer going through. If we don't, our sewer system is going to be in the hole. Okay. Well, one of the things I wanted to point out that we have River Bend up where we live here, that initially they were not going to be in phase one. That's 17 additional homes. They're now going to connect. Okay. So regardless of what we do here, we have 17 homes and the plan was at least 10 or so homes per year to keep on budget is what I've heard. Okay. So that's not double, but 17 homes is quite a bit of revenue every month for our sewer system. So I want to bring that up. You know, we shouldn't, number one, we shouldn't be pressured because of a septic system to have development now. I mean, number one, we just turned in March. Okay. Yeah, this is the first one, as you pointed out, but it's only been a couple months. We are going to have developers pounding on our door because we're right next to Rochester. Okay, so that should not be a reason. And then another thing I heard in the last meeting was these townhomes are going to have single car garages. I want to know where all these cars are going to be parking. Okay, they're going to be parking on our streets. Okay, and we have an emergency come down. We have the ambulances coming down and the fire trucks. Where are they going to get through? With cars on both sides of the street. It's going to be a single lane at best. Okay. Yeah, sorry. And the last thing is about safety. I think there should have been a traffic study done. If you look at the state code and whatnot, what I research whatnot, if you have more than 250 trips on rush hour time frame, we should. If we include all the 3 developments, including this new one, it's way over that. And so thank you for your time and I appreciate it.
Thank you. And so next we have Paul Janetto.
I'll hold the mic. Is that good?
We are teachable, aren't we, Paul?
I can learn. All right, thank you. So first of all, I'm going to talk fast. The city of Orinoco has the legal right to control the density of residential developments. The justification for regulating density is like that for regulation of heights and setbacks of our buildings. The control of density may ensure adequate light and air, eliminate congestion with fire and traffic hazards, and may contribute to the creation of a neighborhood of pleasing homogeneity. However, one of the main reasons for controlling density is that such control permits adequate planning of community facilities and utilities based on the number of families per acre. Where the density is regulated, it's easier to predict the future requirements for schools, sewer and water capabilities, and many other facilities affected by population density. Tonight, you're being asked to approve a land use amendment, variance, and rezoning and preliminary plat. Variants are only permitted when they're in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the ordinance, and when the terms of the variance are consistent with the comprehensive plan. All Minnesota cities, including Orinoco, must apply the legal standard of practical difficulties. This is Minnesota Statute 462.357, subpart 6. When considering variance applications, a city, this is law, a city may only grant a variance if it satisfies the 3-factor test for practical difficulties. The first factor is the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner. The factor means that the landowner would likely use the property in a way that's, reasonable, and he can't do so under the current ordinances. One could argue this is true, and they satisfy this first factor. However, the second factor is the landowner's plight is due to circumstances unique to the property, not caused by the landowner. The uniqueness relates generally to the physical characteristics of that property. That is the land, not personal considerations of the landowner. The statute specifically says that economic considerations alone cannot create practical difficulties. The landowner has stated they want the variance of smaller lot sizes and increased density, the rezoning, to make this project more financially justifiable to develop. As a result, I don't think the second factor is satisfied. The third factor is the variance if granted will not alter the essential character of the locality. Under this factor, Orinoco needs to consider whether resulting development will be out of scale, out of place, or otherwise inconsistent with the surrounding area. For this factor, I would most definitely say that the higher density development is out of place and not consistent with the future land use plan, which is why you're asking to amend it. And since most of this is zoned R1. In fact, with this amendment, they're adding 81 additional units. As a result, I don't believe planning and zoning or city council can state that all three factors are satisfied and demonstrate practical difficulties and must deny the variance. Same thing for rezoning. You have to answer another series of questions, all in a positive manner, and it must be consistent. However, the plan shows again multiple duplex and quad housing in an area that per the future land use plan and current zoning, which was just recently updated and approved in July of 2020 by the citizens of Orinoco. When we came to the city, we purposely looked at the code. I'll wrap it up. In the end, I urge you not to approve this. It doesn't meet the practical laws and standards. However, if whatever reason you do decide to approve these, then I would ask that you add a condition on your approval. Specifically, that the landowner or developer must adhere to the current general development plan and propose lot sizes that they submitted in their project for phases 2 and 3, which all show R1 single family owner lots. Because this was the greatest concern that the homeowners of Cedar Woodlands 1 and 2 have previously expressed. It currently shows in their plan that these will be 3/4 to 1 acre lot sizes for 5 homes. And the landowner has said they did this purposely to be respectful of the current residents. As a result, they shouldn't have any issue agreeing to this condition. And it would prevent any future increase in density 1, 2, 3, 5 years down the road, whatever phase 2 and 3 proceeds. Why is this important? Because if the future city code is ever updated, and it does decrease the minimum lot size from 20,000 to say 5,000, in these lots that are about 1 acre, instead of 5 homes, you could have 40 homes there without a single public hearing or future discussion. So in the end, your decision tonight has a very huge impact on the future of Orinoco.
Thank you. Is this Jeffrey Geske?
Tough act to follow. I'm Jeffrey Geske. I'm here with my wife and daughter. Thank you for the opportunity to speak at this meeting, and I appreciate you reading both of the letters that we've submitted, as well as the many other letters submitted associated with the prior meeting and today's meeting. I recognize that this is an emotionally charged topic, compounded by a need now for a third planning and zoning meeting for the request on private streets. I strongly and without reservation disagree with the city planner that the proposal is in the best interest of Orinoco. Future land use plan was updated in 2020, and in the packet you have a letter submitted from a P&Z member at that time that clearly states that this land was discussed when the sewer plans were clearly known. What has changed beyond a developer seeking to buy the land and repurpose it for undesired high-density housing? We heard tonight, land use plans are guidelines. As a physician myself, there are medical guidelines that I follow in caring for patients. These are thoughtful, planned documents created to improve patient care quality. Let the thoughtful guideline currently in place direct us to conscientious growth. Please consider the safety implications of this 6-fold increase in living units that could even be more, we just heard from Paul. Addition of the multiplexes that are likely to become rentals is a massive change. Consider the impact on streets, the education system, fire, police, and the environment. Consider how we want Orinoco to grow. We remain concerned that the proposed changes do not fit with the vision that the city boasts on its website. Please use existing zone R2 land for R2. Phase 1 of the plan begins with the highest density housing. What is to stop further requests to increase density as the building progresses? We agree with the city engineer that the housing growth is a good thing. So please develop the Cedar Crest land as per the current future land use plan and per current zoning. I love the movie Jurassic Park. There's a very relevant quote that applies to the information presented by the city planner and the city engineer. They were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. Please listen to the many voices of Orinoco citizens here on Zoom. Please reject the adjustment to the future land use plan and the variance request. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Morgan Kocher.
Bring this mic down. Can you hear me? Okay. All right, thank you. My name is Maureen Kocher. My husband, Grant, and I and our 5 children live at 1240 Cedar Drive, Southeast Minnesota. So again, my husband, Grant, and I, with many of our neighbors, some are here, some are on Zoom, some are not able to attend tonight, we're able to attend the public forum on Thursday, June 13th. And I think that you would all agree that we haven't had an overwhelming amount of public support against this rezoning request. We cannot thank the P&Z committee enough for their time and their work that goes into this development of our town, and we felt heard that night. I'm also here tonight to represent another concerned Orinoco citizen, Matt Reuter. I believe he's on Zoom tonight. Matt resides at 295th Street Southeast of Orinoco, Minnesota. Matt was able to create and submit a petition on Tuesday. We were able to collect and gather over, it was actually 209 signatures that were submitted before Tuesday. And before I came tonight, we're up to 213 signatures, which again, I think speaks volumes of our community in this short amount of time. Our concerns included infrastructure strain. Our current infrastructure, particularly Cedar Point Road Southeast, is not equipped to handle the increased density with this proposal. Traffic and safety, the proposal development would significantly increase traffic, posing safety risks for residents and emergency responders, school buses, garbage trucks, snow plows, etc. Community impact, high density development could negatively impact property values, quality of life, and potentially increase crime rates. Environmental concerns, the environmental impact of such a large scale development has not been adequately addressed. Given these issues, we urge the Planning and Zoning Committee and City Council to deny the variance request. I know that Matt also submitted the online link if you need to look at that. It's an Excel spreadsheet that he included. Additionally, we request that this email and petition with over 200 signatures be included in all committee and council meeting agenda packets that pertain to this topic. Thank you again, all of you, for your time and your consideration. We look forward to your response and hope for a decision that aligns with the best interests of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've been through the first call for public comments. This is now the second call for public comments. If you wish to make a comment, then please come forward at this time. Thank you.
Yep. My name is Brian Button. I live at 940 Woodlands Lane, Southeast. Fantastic what everybody's already said, so you've taken all of my points. I have to think of new things now, but along the way here, a couple of things I want to point out and just reiterate, you know, I continuously hear what the city wants. Well, you can see past the first 2 rows what the city wants. It's not this. It's not that changes. It's not changing the future use plan. It's not having rezoning, shrinking the sizes of lots. First 2 rows have that intention. The next 8 to 10 do not. At least I haven't heard anybody back there that says that. I think of it this way. If I'm driving 88 miles per hour on Highway 52 and I tell this at the top that I'm just a little bit over the speed limit, it's over the speed limit. It's 65. The future use plan is our speed limit. It's telling us what to do. It was voted on. It was agreed upon. Our lot sizes were agreed upon. We have not changed the code to go below 20,000 square feet. We have not. We had today, I signed up again just to make sure I was on the list. I signed up on the clipboard to make sure I can have my voice heard, that I don't want it to be under 20,000 square feet. We haven't talked about that yet. It's not guaranteed. Why would we guarantee it to this group until? Wait another year. Let us get through it. If the city of Orinoco wants to go down below, then have this proposal come back through and let it go through in that time frame. We do not have to rush this. So thank you. I would propose that I hope that you do not support this development as it is being proposed today and the variances and so forth. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
So this is the third call for public comments. Is there anybody else that wishes to make a public comment?
Are we able on Zoom to make comments as well?
Yes, you are.
You can go ahead with that.
Okay.
There's a lady standing up. If she wants to go first, that's fine.
Who was it that just asked on Zoom if they could speak?
My name is Marie Reisdorfer.
Please go ahead and speak, Marie.
Okay, thanks. So my name's Marie Reisdorfer. I live on 390 Sunnyview Lane. So I'm across 52 in the River Woods Valley. And I just want to express our concern as a citizen of Orinoco. This is not the first time that we've had other growth opportunities in Orinoco that don't align to really why we all moved out here. We have to be really thoughtful on why we are doing this expansion and growth. We are not against having additional people come into our town, but we need to keep the reason exactly how we wanted to live and really retain that culture for us. When we have some of these high density homes, like we've talked about, and many people have talked about, of just the congestion and the busyness and the crime, and even thinking about our kids and the school district in Pine Island is already tapped. Like, how are you going to accommodate kids that are going to be living in these facilities that are trying to be built? I think we really need to think about the reason we're doing this. The people that are here from a development perspective are doing it for profit. But when the city of Orinoco citizens, this is our home, this is our livelihood. These are the exact reasons we've lived and wanted to be in this community, is to have space and to be able to really think and be thoughtful about the growth that we're trying to do. This does not align to what City of Orinoco has on their website. And I think we just need to pause and really think about how we're driving that message when things have been so public on the website of why we are the way we are and the reason we love this community. I would strongly urge the city of Orinoco, from a city council perspective and planning zoning, to take a minute and pause and really reflect on what's available from a vision statement. These proposals don't align by any means. We're not against the growth, but we need to be thoughtful on that growth and why we're doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
If there is anybody else on Zoom that wishes to speak, I will be back with you in just a moment and check in. At this moment, I have somebody in the room, Beth McNeil.
Hi, my name's Beth, and I was here for the last couple meetings, but my big concerns are, we live on Timberline, so coming down 2nd Avenue and going to Minnesota Avenue, there's one stop sign. So if they're telling me that they are going to increase traffic by 50, 60, 70%, there's one stop sign, and those cars are going past there at 40 to 50 miles an hour, and getting out when there's only just a dead end Timberline is enough. And then you've also got the other River Park. So that's just, I can't even begin to believe that one little stop sign is not going to cause major issues. Also wondering or concerned about the 2nd Avenue development, and why does it have to be, I know we're looking for higher density, but why can't we just look at selling the lots? Why can't we look at, even if you want to look at the smaller lots, but not, I'd like them to keep it 20,000, but look at why are we, changing that and dumping all of the really, really high density right there when you've only got one little way to go out or another way to go out that already has enough traffic. I'm worried about people having those fourplexes as rental. And again, the parking, the 1-car garage. Is there any plan also, or could they, once they develop it as R2, could they buy out the houses around or on 2nd? There's a couple smaller houses, there's the dog boarding. Once you open that door again, you're opening it up and you're encroaching more and more towards Timberline. And I haven't heard anybody speak up about Timberline. We're going to be connected through, we're going to have more traffic. We don't have any sidewalks, I understand that, but that's already people jumping ahead, or racing down the street, We have absolutely no, winter shoveling. They leave 2 or 3, feet on each side, so we get a 1 lane. It's just hazards right and left. So just thought I'd mention a couple things.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your work.
Is there anybody else on the Zoom call that would like to speak to this? I will take that as a no. You're gonna still have another bite at that apple after this gentleman speaks.
Everyone hear me okay? Okay. I largely agree with everything that's been said so far by the residents. There's a couple of things I'd like to revisit.
Could you
Oh, I'm
tell us
sorry.
your name
I'm
and
Travis
address?
Drucker, live at 960 Woodlands Lane, in Cedar Woodlands. As I stated, I completely support everything that's been stated so far by the residents. There's a couple things I'd like to revisit. Multiple times, the developer said this is a slight modification to the future land use plan. I struggle with that statement because they want to triple the size of the R2. It's not a slight, it's a good chunk. They want to have the size of the lots. That's another significant change. These are not slight changes. Multiple times they've stated, there's going to be plan changes and we should approve these variances. But typically when you go through and do plan changes, you look at everything. You look at the big picture. You don't make very small decision or very specific decisions without looking at how it impacts everything else. It's been brought up about the sidewalks. Pretty much anywhere I've been where they go to higher density, they require sidewalks or at least some form of safe pedestrian walkway. We brought this up multiple times. We know it's not in the code, but if you're going to go to that density, if you're going to increase the traffic and you're not going to give kids or people anywhere to walk, I'm very concerned about that. I got young kids. I don't want them to get hit by a car. And if you've ever been over in Cedar Point Road, it's 2-lane road and you can't really walk on the side and have 2 cars pass. Someone has to get off the road. And in the winter, that's not plowed. There's nowhere for them to go. So I wanted to reiterate those 2 points. Not near as eloquent as some of the folks, but, and I think those are the 2 main things. So I appreciate it. And I appreciate all your guys' time. I know this is difficult. Sorry if we get a little feisty, but we're quite passionate about this. We live here. We want to see the community grow, but we also want to see it grow in a way that everyone likes it and they can continue to enjoy it. So thank you.
Thank you. Was there anybody on Zoom that had a statement that they would like to make? Would you like to go ahead and grab a form, and if you would like, you can go ahead and state your name and address and fill that out when you're done speaking, and then you can give it to me, and that way we'll just keep you moving.
Mark Johnson, 240 Shady Ridge Lane, Southwest Orinoco. I just quick comments. I used to be on the Planning and Zoning Committee, as many of you probably know, but I just want to express that we, approved the future land use plan that had approved already some R2s and R1s in that district. And it's just a little disappointing that there's this kind of a rework that wants to be done to the zoning area, and I would not support it if I was still on the Planning and Zoning Committee. It seems like it's just a grab for, I would say, probably extra money versus, competing with the residents' livelihoods there. And it'd be pretty frustrating for us in the city to say, oh, we need to put more R2 zoning in there when there already is plenty to satisfy the needs of the city right now. So that's all I really gotta say. So
thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
thank you.
So one last time to the Zoom people, is there anybody that would like to speak? Anybody in this room that has a word that they would like to say?
Hello from Zoom. Can you hear me?
Yes. What is your name, please, and your address?
This is Marcus Allen. I'm 620 Sunnyview Lane in Orlando. If I just had a chance, first I want to say thank you again for just, going through these difficult conversations. And I think several people have alluded to the emotional charge of it because this is our life and our kids and everything of that nature. So definitely appreciate the time and attention spent on this. I think the only thing that I want to bring to the point of just conversations that I've had with my neighbors throughout the neighborhood, all those kind of things as well. And I think that one of the things on the June 13th meeting was kind of the frustration that the community felt with being able to even speak our voice, even though some of us still had the ability to claw through, find out the information. And this was actually much easier to find this time. So I appreciate it. But then also the fact that now that we have spoken up, right, our voices have been unanimously, essentially with the exception of a few people in there, that the city does not like, the city residents do not want this. We're not in support of it in that space. And I think that the trust in that space for the residents with the city on what they're doing and if they're doing things for the best of our future and whether we can trust the longevity of our families to the city and the elected officials and things of that nature based off of decisions when we so clearly have banded together with, 200, I can't remember the exact number, like 212, signatures on a petition that quickly, when there isn't a just easy way to do that is just a resounding unanimous voice of we oppose, right? So I think that that's just the element that I would like to bring to it is that we understand that there's decisions, there's growth to be made, that running a city is a hard thing. And I don't think that any of us are trying to say that it's not that or that it's the easy choice or whatever it is. But we want to just reiterate the aspect that, what do we really have if, when open discussion and unanimous support is overridden by the minority, simply because there's money involved or whatever it is in that space, when it isn't required, so to speak, that this is the preference of a few because there's an opportunity versus a need in that space. But when it goes against the well-being and the direct planning that we have, it just brings a trapped feeling, so to speak. And so this can't be based off of all feelings. There obviously has to be things of that nature. So that's not what I'm trying to I feel this way, so that's what is law. But it's more so the aspect of thinking about, hey, this is a unanimous or a mutual relationship, is that we have to build things off of trust. We have to build it off of respect. We have to be able to trust our community to be a place where we are considerate of one another. And I think that that's the biggest thing that I wanted to call out, is just kind of consider the trust fact that the city may be earning or losing based off of whether they listen to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Is there anyone else on Zoom that wishes to make a public comment? Is there anybody else in the room that wishes to make a public comment? Phil?
If I may, Madam Chair, just offer some clarifying comments to some of the comments that were made. One is that I appreciate Paul Janetto bringing up the state statute on variances, which is something that the city does need to follow. And he points out rightly that the first criterion that it's a reasonable use, and I think no one would argue that this kind of housing is reasonable, so it meets that. But the uniqueness, unique circumstances with this property, this is a very unique situation, in my opinion, that you have a property coming in, proposing lot sizes that meet very well with the ability of the sewer system that's now in place to handle it, whereas it's the code that is out of date. The code is not keeping up with the circumstances that are there. So this is a unique circumstance that I understand will be addressed very shortly with the change in the code. And the second, that the character of the area, the phrase that the state statute uses, that it won't alter the essential character of the locality. And as was pointed out, the design of this was modified to very carefully address the lot sizes to the adjacent areas, so that I think it does match the character and won't be out of character with the area. I appreciate the analogy that one of the speakers made to the speed limit, that if you're going 88 and a 60, you can't just say, oh, I was using the speed limit as a guideline. I think that analogy is not appropriate. It's more appropriate to say you've got a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit on a roadway that can really handle 60 or 70, and the Planning and Zoning Commission, City Council are going through the due diligence and the public process to change that speed limit to what is a reasonable one, so that in fact it will be changed to 60 or 70, so that people can go that reasonable speed limit on a highway. That again, the city with its sewer system, with its future land use plan, had anticipated higher and denser development, and we're going about that process instead of flaunting what's in place. The other thing that, in terms of a larger context, that in the communities I work with, and I work with dozens of communities around the state, housing is an issue in all of them, and trying to provide the housing that's needed so that the people who work and live in that community can in fact work and live comfortably. And there's a phrase that's tossed around in planning and housing, the missing middle, that there are many single family homes and people who can afford those, and there are a few apartment buildings and lower cost housing, and what's missing is the middle, those townhouses, those twin homes, so that people can move up out of the apartments or move down out of the single family into easier home types as they age or their conditions change. And this development provides a mix of that. So it's providing the townhomes, the twins, and the single family to complement what is almost all single family in Orinoco today. And for the community that is evolving, people who are already here, providing that full range of employment and income ranges, and to be able to continue to provide that. So those are just a few comments I wanted to clarify.
Thank you.
Someone on Zoom.
Is there somebody on Zoom that wishes to make a public comment?
Yeah, this is Marie Reisdorfer again. I guess so what was just said about the sewer system, I know it keeps getting brought up. I just wanted to state that the sewer system as it is today with the citizens and residents in Orinoco, we're already paying for it. They put liens on everybody's houses to fund that. Like, I don't know why that is a selling point, that we're bringing in high density homes to help offset that cost. It's already being maintained and paid for by the citizens and residents in Orinoco. Like, I get that we built it bigger than we probably needed because we knew that there was going to be growth, but I don't think that's a very, very fair statement, because everyone else is paying for it as it's being built. And again, I think the analogy of missing in the middle, if you look in Rochester, there's a lot of middle, and there's a lot of things that are being built that none of us in Orinoco want in our backyard. And I think we just need to think about, like I said before, like the mission statement that's on the city of Orinoco. There's lots of excuses and reasons why this is a great idea from the developer, but at the end of the day, it's profit for them. This is not profit for us. This is personal.
Thank you, Maria. Is there anybody else on Zoom that would like to make a public comment? Is there anybody in the room that would like to make a public comment? Then we are going to close this public hearing at 8:01 p.m. And at this point,
Let's talk. I wouldn't mind saying something.
Well, I just closed the public hearing.
Yeah, of course.
I'm sorry, I put out the call several times, and I apologize that you didn't get to make your comments. If you would like to send those comments to the Planning and Zoning Commission, then please feel free to email us and we would be happy to look at those comments. At this point, we'd like to hear the planner's report. Would you like to share your findings of fact with us, please, Phil?
So, Madam Chair, as I summarized at the beginning of this meeting, there are 4 separate decisions, and we have suggested findings for each of those that are in our report with today's date. The first of those, of course, is the land use plan amendment, where we suggest findings. City of Orinoco adopted a comprehensive plan and future land use plan map to guide future growth and development of the city and to provide a basis for the planning of future public infrastructure, which was adopted on July 17, 2006. It should be added and map amended in 2015 and 2020. The future land use map as a component of the comprehensive plan has been amended since the comprehensive plan adoption. Proposed land use plan amendment is compatible with adjacent land uses. Proposed amendment is justified by a change in conditions since the future land use plan was established or last amended. And that change, of course, is the provision of municipal sewer. The proposed amendment is in the public interest and is not solely for the benefit of a single property owner. The proposed amendment is consistent with the general intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance. The proposed amendment is consistent with the other aspects of the comprehensive plan, other adopted plans, policies, and accepted planning practice. The proposed amendment would not adversely affect the public health, safety, and general welfare. And so, Madam Chair, I don't know how you want to approach these. Take each of these decisions separately, but those were the suggested findings initially for that first decision on the future land use plan amendment.
What I would suggest at this point, if everybody is agreeable, is I'd like you to do the findings of fact for each of the 4 things that you have requested, and then after we will address them one at a time.
Okay. Presuming that the future land use plan amendment is changed, then the zoning change would be the next to be consistent with that land use plan amendment. And those suggested findings are: 1, that Hellas ADG have submitted a request to amend the zoning map, that the proposed zoning changes generally conform to the current future land use plan and would conform to the future land use plan amendment proposed by the applicant. The proposed zoning change is compatible with adjacent land uses and zoning. The city of Orinoco and or other agencies would be able to provide necessary public services, facilities, and programs to serve any development allowed by the new zoning classification at the time the property is developed. The proposed zoning change is justified by a change in conditions since the previous zoning classification was established or by an error in the zoning map. And of course, it wasn't an error, it was because conditions have changed. The zoning change is in the public interest and is not solely for the benefit of a single property owner. The proposed zoning change is consistent with the general intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance. The proposed zoning change is consistent with the comprehensive plan, other adopted plans, policies, and accepted planning practice. The general intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance would be adhered to with the proposed zoning map amendment. Proper administrative procedures related to the request are being followed. Public health, safety, and general welfare will not be adversely affected by the proposed zoning map amendment. And then on the variances for the dimensions, that is the lot sizes and lot widths, suggested findings in support of it would be: Hellas ADG are applicants to a proposed development known as Cedar Crest Point in Orinoco and have requested variances to reduce minimum lot sizes and width. The city of Orinoco has adopted zoning code standards for dimensional standards for lots as prescribed by each zoning district and outlined in the code. At the time, the city of Orinoco did not have municipal sewer, so the minimum lot size standards were created to ensure adequate room for on-site septic. The city of Orinoco has implemented and can now provide functioning community-wide sewer collection and treatment. On-site septic services are not requested for the proposed development. There are unique circumstances involved in the request not created by the applicant. The lot size requirements in zoning code are intended for unsewered lots, and the proposed development will be served by the new municipal sewer service, which can accommodate much smaller lot sizes. The request meets the criteria in section 151.401 for granting a variance, and those are the criteria in your code for variances. And for the private streets, and again, as I note, these are neutral and not necessarily supporting this. Hellas ADG are applicants of a proposed development known as Cedar Crest Point in Orinoco that features several private streets that will serve multiple residents and have requested a variance to allow for the use of private streets. The City of Orinoco Code of Ordinances define a private street as a street which is not maintained by the city and for which the city is not under obligation to carry out repairs, even though it may be a named street and serve a number of properties. Section 151.281B10, the City of Orinoco Code of Ordinances subdivision standards, prohibits the use of private streets except as when used for planned unit developments, nor shall public improvements be approved for any private streets. The request on its own will not alter the essential character of the area. The request is in conflict with City Code of Ordinance requirements. The request is neither supported or unsupported by the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan, and the request may meet the criteria for approving a variance in section 151.401. And finally, the preliminary plat, assuming the land use plan and rezoning and variances are approved, then the plat would be approved as well. One, Hellas ADG are applicants of a proposed development known as Cedar Crest Point in Orinoco. The applicants submitted an application for the approval of a preliminary plat pursuant to section 151.250 and following. The city and the applicant have provided the required written notice for a public hearing with the Planning and Zoning Commission. The public hearing was opened and held on June 13th, 2024, and was continued to the July 11th, 2024 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Not all requirements for approval of a plat have been met at this time. Dimensional standards of the zoning ordinance would be met with the proposed zoning and variance requests accompanying this subdivision. Technical specifications required of the preliminary plat as conditioned can be met. The proposed plat aligns with the goals and objectives of the Orinoco Comprehensive Plan and other relevant and active plans and studies. The property is located within the City of Orinoco corporate boundaries, can be adequately serviced with available municipal services. The proposed preliminary plat does not contain any sensitive lands such as wetlands and estuaries and is located outside of the special flood hazard area. The applicant has given due diligence in providing opportunities for the city to participate in the development and review of a sketch plan, referred herein often as a general development plan or GDP. Stormwater runoff impacted by this subdivision can be adequately managed to protect public and private investments and the natural environment. Preliminary design requirements for all public infrastructure can be met, sufficient for the submittal of the final plat. Public health, safety, and general welfare will not be adversely affected by the proposed subdivision. Proper administrative procedures related to the request are being followed. So those are the proposed findings as in our report. You, of course, are free to adopt or modify them as you see fit.
Thank you. So at this time, I am going to read a findings of fact that would support the denial of these requests. Future land use plan amendment, finding 1. The proposed amendment could adversely affect the public health, safety, and general welfare of the community. A, there's been no traffic study completed or even proposed to determine the potential for increased traffic and consequent negative impact on the community. B, there is inadequate safety infrastructure such as sidewalks and turning lanes. Finding number 2, the proposed amendment is premature as the Planning and Zoning Commission is currently in the process of updating the city code. A, there is a concern that changes of this magnitude could be misaligned with the newly updated code when completed. B, there is a concern that changes of this magnitude could set precedents that would not be beneficial to the city's future development. C, the prudent timing for consideration of further changes to the future land use plan would be after the city code has been revised and adopted. Finding 3, the future land use map, the guide for future growth and development of the city, was updated and approved by Orinoco residents on July 21, 2020. And this plan does not align with that future land use plan. Moving on to the rezoning request. Finding 1, the proposed amendment could adversely affect the public health, safety, and general welfare of the community. There's been no traffic study completed or even proposed to determine the potential for increased traffic and consequent negative impact on the community. B, there is an inadequate safety infrastructure such as sidewalks and turning lanes. Finding 2, the proposed rezoning is premature as the Planning and Zoning Commission is currently in the process of updating the city code. There is concern that changes of this magnitude could set precedents that would not be beneficial for the city's future development. The prudent timing for any review of the existing zoning districts would be after the city code has been revised and adopted. Finding 3, the future land use map was updated and approved by residents of Orinoco on July 21, 2020, and the land in question was designated as R1, low density, single family homes. Moving on to the request for variances that include dimensional standards in private streets. Finding 1, and this is referring back to the presentation that Paul Janetto did tonight. Minnesota Statute 462.357 subdivision 6 states, variances shall only be permitted when they are in harmony with the general purpose or intent of the ordinance and when the variances are consistent with the comprehensive plan. Variances may be granted when the applicant for variance establishes that there are practical difficulties in complying with the zoning ordinance. Practical difficulties as used in connection with granting of a variance means A, that the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the zoning ordinance. I do believe that the developers have met that criteria. And B, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner. I do not believe that this project meets that standard. And the variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. I believe that the congestion, that the tearing down of 5 to 8 acres of woodlands, that these things are going to impact the essential character of the locality in a dramatic way. And then there was one other thing in there, economic considerations alone do not constitute practical difficulties. Finding 2, the proposed variance for private roads could adversely affect the public health, safety, and general welfare of the community. The narrowness of private roads could impede emergency vehicle accessibility. B, residents living on private roads will have no entitlement to city snow removal and other weather-related amenities that could create hardship for them. Moving on to the preliminary plat. Finding 1, There has been nothing submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission, City Council, or Orinoco residents that I'm aware of in the way of an artist rendering or floor plan for the fourplexes, duplexes, single-family homes. The city has no idea what this project will look like once it's completed. Finding 2, there has been no assurance from the developer that the plans submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council, if approved, will remain unchanged through the first, second, and third phases of the project. With this being said, I entertain a motion to deny these requests from the Hamilton Group for future land use plan amendment, rezoning, variances for dimensional standards in private streets, and preliminary plat. I'm going to break this up. We'll do this one at a time. So I move, we will have discussion once there's been a motion and a second. If there is no second, there is no need for discussion because the motion will not exist after that. So I move to deny the Hamilton Group application for the future land use plan amendment. Is there a second? So Jim Richards has seconded that motion. It is moved and seconded to deny the application for future land use plan amendment. Is there any discussion at this point among the commissioners?
Well, my initial comment was just gonna be if we deny this, then we don't need to, then the rest of it is irrelevant, right? Because
I believe that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, if we want to discuss, we want to do that first, right?
Right, yeah. So I wanted to ask, Jim, you talked about the WSB steering committee work. And part of that was, a questionnaire looking for feedback. Part of it was, what I heard was looking at visual preferences, lot sizes, and setbacks. Is it also considering an adjustment to the future land use plan? Because I do understand that that's not a static thing. It is something that grows, but I'm not sure it grows like this at public hearing that without a lot more consideration. So is WSB working at all on the future land use plan, or is it really just about zoning code?
It's more of zoning code and lot sizes, which are gonna be discussed, okay? And so that's there, and we just haven't worked our way to that point. But we started with WSB 4 months ago, 5 months ago. You know, so we're well into what's going on with WSB.
Okay.
And I'd like to make a comment on the future land use plan. I think there was, because I was a part of that when Paul Janetto was the chair. And there was a lot of thought put into that. There was a lot of public input as well. And I think if we're gonna make a change to the future land use plan, I think we need to put the same rigor around those changes and not just knee-jerk reactions.
Are you talking about a community coming together, making that decision as a community, and then moving forward from that point?
Right, because this is, I mean, this community doesn't belong to us, it belongs to our residents.
Absolutely.
And they moved here for a reason. And my feeling is we are violating their trust. They came here based on what was in place, and we can't punk them. You know, they came here with the thought that things were as they were on the plan. And if we start making changes, what is that gonna equal? Is that gonna equal a massive exit of people? You know, wouldn't that be a bigger impact than not changing zoning? You know, that's what goes through my mind.
I think that there also is gonna be changing on lot sizes. That's gonna happen with WSB. You know, I mean, I think that's a fact. It's gonna be coming. What those sizes are, we really don't know now, because it's gotta go to a public hearing to figure out exactly what's going on. But there could be changes for sure, you know, away from the 20,000 square feet.
But there has to be in there with that at some point. But I also think that if we, kind of like when we had the disagreement over the sign, if you just start giving variances right now to this project and you look for the next 5, 10, 15 years, then you have to just give everybody that variance. I mean, that's kind of where we were disagreeing before. So if we grant all of that now, then really doesn't matter what the rules are. I'm not saying that I disagree with most of the project, but I don't think that we can just grant a variance because we feel like it.
Right.
I think it has to meet all of the criteria, and I don't think that it does. And if the code gets changed so that it does, then fine.
And I'll say, I don't disagree with the project.
I was gonna say, I think, changing the future land use plan is bigger than a variance.
Yes.
I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking about a major,
Yep.
I mean, it is only part of a comprehensive plan, but it is your guideline on that comprehensive plan, and that's usually developed more smoothly, shall we say, at a more considered pace. And so, I mean, that is really my concern about this. I will say, listening to my fellow residents here, when my parents bought the house I now live in, all of you guys, those houses were a cornfield. I could see the, Milky Way from my backyard. I could cross-country ski through all those lots. So I kind of worry about this not in my backyard thing, because we do need to think about development. And so I'm not going to speak against that, but I do think when you're talking about a future land use plan, that there is something about that. And the person from Timber Land, because I walk my dogs up Second Avenue because I live right on Second Avenue. And that's not the safest street right now to go on. And I know I'm not the only one walking or jogging on that street. And that's, there's some blind spots coming up over that hill. People do not respect that stop sign right now. So, I guess that really also made me stop and think, whoa, if we're talking about 70% of the traffic from that development coming onto that street.
Right.
That's
It's a concern,
right.
a large concern.
Right. Yeah, it is. Yeah, there's some infrastructure problems there on that street, I would say.
And I think, just to reiterate, we're not saying we don't want the project, that we don't want development. It's the change and making the change without a lot of thought and process and input into it, I think is where I'm at.
I think
we want development.
I think that if we are being rushed in our decision-making process, the potential for making mistakes is increased in that. And that's not to say that we're not going to make any mistakes as we are growing our community, but we absolutely want to do it in at a pace that is sustainable. And we also want to do it while taking the residents' opinions or thoughts into consideration. And I believe that all of us know that the growth of this community is inevitable. But that doesn't mean that we have to surrender the way that it takes place completely. And so I think that just to be able to slow down a little bit would be very beneficial. And it would give us all a chance to take a closer look at what our options are, because we have more options than it feels like in this conversation. This is just the beginning of the conversation. The conversation is going to expand from this point, and we are going to have to be willing to be open-minded and be willing to embrace the change that may not always be easy for us, because I moved to this community for the same reason that I heard all of you state, is because it is very country-esque and it is very quiet and spacious. And I love that about this community. But we can grow in a way that is going to make sense. And so I think that is my thought process here. Is there something that you'd like to share, John?
No.
No? Okay. Anybody else? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we will move to a vote. All those in favor of approving. So a yes vote is going to move this project forward. All those in favor of approving the future land use map amendment.
Well,
Please
but your motion was to deny it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And I said,
So.
Thank you so
Your motion
much.
Was to deny it.
Oh,
So a yes
goodness.
vote would be to deny it.
Well, see, I get in a hurry and I make mistakes, and so it's a good thing I have these people to keep me on track. So let's start that over again. The motion is to deny the application for future land use plan amendment. So a yes vote is going to deny the application. All those in favor of denying the future land use plan amendment, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed, please say no. So the motion carries. The future land use plan amendment is denied. And for that reason, I believe it makes the other requests moot. Is that correct?
If I may, Madam Chair, I would
Yes.
take up each of the requests, and because you recommended denial of this, presumably you would recommend denial of those others. And I would include the findings that you suggested, but maybe add a first finding, which is because it's inconsistent with the land use plan amendment that you just denied. So recommend denial. Yeah, I would make a decision on all of the requests.
All of the remaining three right now? Okay, so I make a motion to deny the request for rezoning, the variances, and the preliminary plat. Is there a second?
A second.
So it's been moved and seconded to deny the remaining applications. Is there any discussion?
Have to do it for each one, I think, don't we?
Yeah.
No, we just discussed this, that if we do it all together, then we're gonna be correct.
And if you suggest, Madam Chair, maybe reference the findings that you had read earlier, just so you've got a complete.
I've already read them and they're already public record, so I don't think that that's gonna be necessary.
In the motion, say, pursuant to the findings that you had previously.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would the commission prefer that I do this application by application? Or would you
You
like me
can-
to do the three of them together right now?
Well, I think each one, or however you want to do it that way, with reference to what you did the first time. Otherwise, it's a lot of reading that you have going on, and it's all the same.
I'd just make a reference to what you previously read.
Okay.
Based on what you previously.
Okay. And doing them one at a time?
Individually.
Okay, so we're gonna do these one at a time. Based on the findings of fact that were read previously, I move to deny the request for rezoning.
Second then.
So it has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I would like to add one finding of fact that, because it does not meet the future land use plan.
Very well. Is that just for this application?
Well, it'll have to be for all of them.
Okay, so state that again, please.
That we add, that the zoning change is inconsistent with the future land use plan.
So I will be adding that to the findings of fact, and I will submit these to Mary to include in the minutes of the meeting. And so this has been added, it will be added in each of those 4 requests. And so is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we will move to the vote. All those in favor of denying the request for rezoning, please indicate by saying aye.
Okay.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. The application for rezoning is denied. Moving on to the variances for dimensional standards in private streets. Based on the findings of fact, I move to deny the request for variances. And is there a second for that?
Second.
So it has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will move to the vote. All those in favor of denying the request for variances, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. The request for variances is denied. So based on the findings of fact, I move that we deny the request for the preliminary plat. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we deny the request for the preliminary plat, the application for that. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will move to the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. The application for preliminary plat is denied. So I just want to remind the Hamilton group that the Orinoco Planning and Zoning Commission is an advisory commission. And we will be forwarding our recommendation to the City Council for their consideration at their next meeting, which will be on Tuesday.
Yes.
Is that correct? Do you know the date off the top of your head? The 16th? Tuesday, July 16th. And the council is the final authority in this decision. So we are moving on to new business. And this is regarding the June 2024 building permits. We have a printout of the permits that were issued in the month of June. Is there anything that any of the commissioners would like to address or ask questions about?
The iWorks has been very good, and we have access to that now, so you can on a daily basis check and see what's actually been permitted. So those of you who've not signed into that, please do.
Okay, and just so that we know, this is a new business item. That you just spoke to is the second item in old business.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. We can, if we need to cover that base again, we can do that. Is there any other discussion regarding the permits? Very good. We're going to move on to old business. We already discussed the WSB project update. And once again, those clipboards that are circulating out there, if you would like to be part of the conversation in the rewrite of the city code, please put your contact information on those clipboards. And I am forwarding that information to the Planning and Zoning Chair, Kathy Brent Rucker. She will be reaching out to you and letting you know when we will be having those meetings, and you will be invited to them so that you can be part of that conversation. And we've already discussed the iWorks, which is real-time updates on the permits that are being issued in the city. And then we have an update on 115 3rd Street Northwest and the status of that. And I know our city administrator, Jason Baker, you went out to that, didn't you? Would you like to address that? Or would you just?
Southwest?
115 3rd Street Southwest.
Northwest.
Yeah, Northwest.
Is it Northwest?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it says Southwest on my, okay. So it's Northwest?
Is it up by the Presbyterian Church?
Yeah, that's the one.
It's
Yeah.
Southwest. It is Southwest.
Okay, so.
It says Northwest on the agenda.
I know it does, but I know the property and it's Southwest.
I've got a little bit of room left here on my paper if I need to rewrite that a few more times. Okay, would you like to address, or would you like me to address that?
If we got CMS talk about if they were here, but I don't know if they're here. If you got stuff in there, I guess you can kind of.
I do. I have a report from CMS and then I have a statement from you also.
Yeah. That's fine.
Okay.
Let's go with it.
So this is from CMS. They are our inspector. And this is dated June 28th, 2024. Mary Nash Smith, 115 3rd Street Southwest, Orinoco, Minnesota, 55960. Regarding property located at 115 3rd Street Southwest, PO Box 316, Orinoco, Minnesota, and adjacent vacant lot. As the building official for the city of Orinoco, Minnesota, I am posting this notice to declare this building a single-family dwelling and 3 sheds on the property as unsafe buildings. This is provided for by the current building code as stated in the 2020 Minnesota Building Code under Administration Section 1300.180. The single-family dwelling is deemed unsafe for, at minimum, the following reasons: structurally unsafe, a fire hazard, dangerous to human life, unsanitary conditions, an electrical hazard. The sheds on the property also fit 1 or more of the previous conditions. The buildings shall not be occupied or used. The buildings shall be vacated and or remain vacated. The above administration section states all unsafe buildings, structures, or appendages are public nuisances and must be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal according to Minnesota statutes, sections 463.15 to 463.26. And then it is signed Randy Bothan, building official for City of Orinoco, Construction Management Services. And then it shows the building permits. And then may I read your?
Yeah.
And
those permits are posted at the residence.
They are.
That you have to provide all public information, so that's all posted.
Thank you. So this is to the Planning and Zoning Commission from Jason Baker, City Administrator, dated July 1, 2024, regarding 115 3rd Street Southwest. On Thursday, June 27, 2024, CMS building instructor, Mr. Randy Bothan, and I conducted an on-site inspection of residential housing unit located at 115 3rd Street Southwest. Accompanied by an Olmsted County Sheriff's Office deputy, I served the owner of the property with an administrative warrant to have the property inspected by CMS building inspectors as part of the issued building permits. The deputy assisted in clearing the residence before Mr. Bothan entered the residence and completed his internal inspection. I entered into the entryway of the residence and chose not to go further inside due to the number of items piled throughout the house. From the exterior of the house, there were obvious signs of decay. The roof was visibly sagging in areas. The chimney appeared to be falling into the roof, and there was a visible hole in at least one portion of the room. The residential unit was deemed unsafe by Mr. Bothan for the following reasons: structurally unsafe, a fire hazard, dangerous to human life, excuse me, unsanitary conditions, and electrical hazard. The sheds on the property also fit 1 or more of the previous conditions. I spoke with the owner of the property when complete and advised her that the city council would be advised of the current condition and possibly take further action. On Friday, June 28, 2024, Mr. Bothan posts the attached notice at the property. Due to the current condition of the unit, I agree with Mr. Bothan's findings. After inspections, the 2 current permits were closed out. The demolition permit was deemed completed after a portion of the house was previously removed. The building permit for renovation was deemed failed for framing, other and final building other. See attached permits. And so we have the statement from the inspector, the statement from our city administrator, and we have the attached building permits that, as I understand, they are posted at the property, correct?
Yeah, his notice is posted at the property.
Very good. So is there anything that you would like to speak to regarding that?
Just so you guys are, I don't know how much you guys are aware of the backstory. I mean, this has been an ongoing problem well before my time here. I think this house has been brought to our attention about 8 years ago, for various reasons. And throughout that time, the administration here has been working with the resident. It is not and has not been used, from my understanding, for the last at least 15 years as a residence to live. It's been a storage house. So that's why there's a lot of stuff inside there. So I don't have any concern of somebody actually living there at this time. But it will be brought before council, and CMS will address it a little bit more, and as well as with the attorney, as far as the next step of what council needs to do and trying to work with the homeowner. I think there's a deep intention from the homeowner to want to just bring the house down, but she didn't specifically say that. It's just through everything I've read over the years, I think that is the intention. But until we hear otherwise or work with council, it's gonna be brought to council for the next steps.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments from the commission?
So you're pretty sure she's not living there?
Yeah.
Okay. Cause when you're talking about it, I wonder if there's a vulnerable adult and
No,
we need to
there's no evidence of anybody living there.
adult services or anything involved, no?
No, she's got a residence in Rochester, from my understanding, so it's used as a storage.
Okay.
I'll use that term loosely, so.
Any other questions? This concludes our agenda for the evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Meeting is adjourned at 8:44 p.m.
I know, now, turn these on.